Thanks. I'm Bart Paulson, and obviously, I've worked with some of you before, and we had some contact. I have given a number of presentations with Big Data Utah, and my, my my angle at this one is unusual. Some of you come from very different backgrounds from the data world, and so I'm not the only person here in that situation. But I want to talk to you a little bit about teaching data science online, and I'll begin by giving you a little bit of background. Number one, as got mentioned, I'm a professor. I have a PhD in social psychology. So that's not a clinical field. It's a research field. And social psychologists are very often tasked with teaching statistics and research methods in their departments, which is what I did for years. I've been a university professor for over 22 years. I've been taught as an adjunct several years before that. So and I have taught statistics every semester since then. I'm coming up around the 80th time, 90th time I've taught statistics as an introductory class to psychology and behavioral science students. One of the interesting things that happened with that is several years ago, I was teaching a class and I decided to use some software in the class. Common program in my field is called SPSS. And I thought it would be nice to use that because if you go to graduate school in one of the social sciences, that was often the tool of choice. Um, and that ended up being a really, really bad idea for my class because people had a hard enough time, I'm not kidding, remembering the difference between the mean and the median. And to throw on top some computer application was overwhelming. And so I would have to demonstrate the same thing again and again and again in class. Out of that frustration, I made my first video. And that was just me talking to my computer. I'm just using the mic. There's fan noise from the computer. Very simple stuff. I had to repeat it about 3 times because I couldn't edit it in the middle. I was just trimming at the ends and sticking it on YouTube. That's where I made my first video. And since then, I have made that was about 12 years ago, and I've made over 600 videos on YouTube on 2 different channels of mine since then. One of the interesting things about that is I got contacted by LinkedIn Learning, which at the time was lynda.com. And they had seen one of my SPSS videos and invited me to produce a course for them. And what that did is led to the first of, uh, I've I've made about 30 courses for them. There are 25 current English language courses. There are 11 translations and several courses that have been revised or retired. But I've been working with them continually. I finished a new course just a few weeks ago on data mining in Python. Um, and that's been a really, really nice thing to do. And in addition to that, I also created my own company called datalab.cc about 6 years ago. It still exists, and I have 11 courses that I created for that. Now, those 11 courses are part of the 600 videos that I have on YouTube. Um, but I'll say more about that as I go through this presentation. Um, let's see here. So, what I want to talk to you a little bit is about how you could potentially make some money teaching some kind of data science online. The important thing to know, by the way, is, and I'll come back to this, you don't have to be the expert. You just have to have enough information to share something useful to somebody else who could benefit from it. That's what I did. Again, I have 4 degrees. I have a bachelor's, 2 masters, and a PhD. None of them are in what I get paid to do. I am self-taught in statistics and data science and programming. And that's what I get paid to do at UVU for LinkedIn, the stuff I do on YouTube, and my own company. And it also means that because I've been picking stuff up on my own, my development's a little, there are sometimes things that I don't know how to do that I'm a little embarrassed about. But again, you don't have to be the expert. As long as you have some kind of insight, or you can put something in a context that's useful for somebody else, you can turn that into something that could potentially could get you a little bit more money. Now, to put it into context, I want to start by talking about expected outcomes, which is a statistical term. So expected outcomes by the platform in which you can teach. And I'm talking about videos. I'm talking about doing this online. I'll say a little more about non-video stuff at the end, but for right now, I want to talk about the video. So the first one is smaller expected outcomes, smaller but more certain. And that means putting stuff on YouTube. I know there are people who have millions of followers and make millions of dollars on YouTube. That is not my experience. And when you're teaching data science, you are going to be looking at a smaller amount of money, but reliable. Then there is a larger expected outcome, and that means working for a major provider. I'll talk more about those. And then I was either going to put indefinite or just negative, and that's starting your own business with the specific goal of doing online training. So I'll come back to that one. But let's start with YouTube, because YouTube's really easy. Now, the first thing to know about YouTube is the actual expected earnings. And the point is, they're really small. I've got 240 videos that are monetized. So you may be aware that if you put a video on YouTube, you have a choice of monetizing it. Now, you first have to have a certain number of videos and a certain number of whatever in order to be eligible for monetization, but it doesn't take a lot. So I've monetized less than half of my videos, and that was deliberate. But the ones that I have monetized, again, there's about 240. The middle 50% makes between 1 cent and 34 cents per video per month. So it's kind of negligible. It's a small amount of money, but when you multiply it times a large number, plus there are outliers. That's just the middle 50%. The most popular videos can earn $5 to $10 a month. I have one that paid $8 last month. But that's an outlier. And on the other hand, when you have a lot of videos, if you have 100 monetized videos, that can be 25 or $50 a month. And so it becomes a question of return on investment. And it also lets you know that I'm going to say, you usually want simple production. And part of that is because you're not going to get a lot of money from these usually. But I'll give you a little bit of pro and con here. The nice thing about YouTube is it doesn't cost you anything to put stuff onto YouTube. I mean, you don't have to pay money in order to be able to post. And the kinds of videos that you can put on there, they're very cheap and easy. Also, you can have a really wide reach because there's enormous global audience on there. There was a time when I had more viewers from India than I had from the United States. And then there was a brief period during which I had more from Greece than I had from the United States. But you can reach large groups of people, you can reach all around. Also, YouTube has built-in analytics, so you get to see where the people come from and basic demographics about them. And you also get to see their comments and see what they say. So YouTube is, I would say, by far the lowest barrier to entry and the best place to start for making videos. There are some cons. Number one, there is saturation, and that is anything you want to do, there's probably 1,000 videos on it already. And so that there is that issue. Now, I say that because if you just put in I want to do big data, there's going to be a lot of stuff there. On the other hand, there are ways of finding a niche. I have produced most of the videos on an application called Jamovi that are on YouTube because it's new software. People don't know it. And so my YouTube videos became the source on Jamovi. And if you have an integration of two different things that you like to talk about, you can very quickly end up with a special niche. If you want to talk about data science as applied to self-employed therapists, that's going to be a special group. Even if the stuff you're talking about is pretty regular, having a niche there. I have a colleague who is both a yoga teacher and an accountant, and I'm trying to convince her that she needs to combine those for her videos. You need accounting tutorials for yoga instructors and studio owners. There is a market. The other thing about videos on YouTube is, you know, everybody knows there's inconsistent quality. Some of them are just unwatchable. You know, they're 2-hour long videos. They're from the back of a classroom and you can't see what's on the board. And it's hard to find something that would make sometimes you can't find a collection that works well together. Also, as I pointed out, you don't make a ton of money with YouTube. I got $50 last month. I'm grateful for it. That $50 is helpful. And, but you're not going to live off of it. You know, you may be aware that if you are making YouTubes for video and you want to make money, what you, and I don't see anybody while I'm saying this, but you know, the highest paying categories of videos on YouTube are beauty and makeup tutorials and toy unboxings by children. And so I'm not an expert on either one of those. I talk about data, so I'm in a very small category. But that said, totally easy to make videos on YouTube and to get started with that. I'll mention there's one other thing that's really good about YouTube. It is the gateway. It's how you can show other people that you can make videos and they want to pay you money for it. Think of it as a calling card. And in fact, for some of the providers, they will ask for videos of you teaching, and it can be just this. By the way, when I make videos, they're not videos of me, they're screen recordings. It's my computer screen with me talking over it, just like what I'm doing right now. Those are very easy to produce. Now, the next category where there is a larger expected outcome, where you can make some real money, is with what I'm calling major providers. That means companies like Pluralsight, which is here in Utah, or DataCamp, which has grown tremendously over the last few years, Coursera, which hosts the world's most famous machine learning course with Andrew Ng, or LinkedIn Learning, which is who I work with. There are others, but these are some of the major players, especially if you want to do a course in the data world. Now, with one of these providers, you're not producing a single video, you're producing an entire course, and that's usually 1 to 4 hours. And let's see here. So, you know, you're counting on somewhere between 20 and 60 videos. The earnings, the IQR, this is based both on my experience on what I've gotten from other people. The middle 50% of courses will get somewhere between $100 and $1,500 per course per month. Obviously, 25% will be lower than that. And there's going to be 25% where, again, you've got outliers that shoot way off up into the high end. The most popular courses, that is, if you have one of those courses that's in like the top 5%, they can earn $5,000 or more per month, but that is unusual. But the important thing about this is you roll around enough courses, it becomes a significant amount of income. I am to the point, because I've been doing this for a long time, that I could stop working as a professor at UVU. I could live off of what I make with LinkedIn, but my job there is very important to me. It's also the one where I get my insurance and my retirement benefits, and my kids go to UVU and I get tuition benefits for them. I also like being a professor. And so to me, the major providers is still something you do as a side gig in addition to your major job. Now, there are some pros and cons to the major providers. The pros, obviously, is they can pay well. Also, a really nice thing is they do the marketing. They do all the business stuff. They collect the payments. They take care of everything. For instance, with LinkedIn, I just send them raw video. I don't even edit out the ums and the ahs. They do all of that. Also, it's really nice because the courses tend to be really high quality. They do great production, and also they structure an entire course so people know this is the first one, this is the second one, and they can put courses together into learning pathways. It's a really nice experience. There are a few cons. One, of course, is not just anybody can do it. You have to apply. But all of these providers, Pluralsight, DataCamp, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, if you just Google their name and say apply as an instructor, you'll get to the page. You can do that, but you'll want to have a little bit of experience doing some stuff on YouTube first, that you can show them that you know what you're talking about. Also, for some of these, you may need to self-produce. For instance, I know that at least historically, Pluralsight would have their instructors produce the video. So you would have to do all the editing. You would hand them a final product. On the other hand, they would also give a bonus. This is LinkedIn Learning doesn't give bonuses. They give advances, but not bonuses. But they do the production. So there's trade-offs on that. Also, and I don't really like saying it this way, it says you're not in control. What that means is you're not in complete control. You don't get to choose all of the courses. But I have periodic, every 3-6 months, I have an exchange with I have a producer, I have a manager, I have a producer and a manager. The manager is the one I talk to, and he and I have a little strategy and say, what do we want to do over the next year? And so I make some proposals, he will take them to his people, and then he'll come back and say, we'll do this one and this one. So I say, you're not in control. I say, you're not in complete control. You can't do absolutely anything. And for instance, like I can't do an Excel course there. The Excel courses are totally covered. And so I have to do something that has not already been done. But those are relatively minor cons. Now, in terms of owning your own business, there are a few options. Now, if you want to make videos that teach people how to do stuff, that usually means getting a platform like Teachable or Thinkific. Those are the two most common ones. You pay a bunch of money. Thinkific can be there's a free version, but if you're actually trying to make a living doing it, it's $1,000 a year. And you create a course and you put all the videos up there and you break it into pieces, and you can put quizzes in, and you can put little certificates on there. But you also do the marketing, and they facilitate the business, but this is definitely your own business now. It's just you're hosting it on Teachable or Thinkific. Canvas is really common in schools, but there is a free version of Canvas. If you go to canvas.instructure.com, you can create your own free Canvas course. You will have to find a way to set up a paywall to get people to give you money for that, but you can host it there. And then, if you want to get really hands-on, you can create something from scratch in WordPress, or, write your own HTML. I do my websites on Squarespace, but I also don't do any commerce through them. WordPress is well set up for commerce, but these get very demanding. In terms of owning your own business, there are some pros and cons there. Pro is you can have total control. You're in charge of everything. And that can be both a blessing and a curse. The other thing is you can keep all of the profits. You can't keep all of the money because you have to pay for the service. You got to pay for your web hosting. You got to, if you have people working for you, you got to pay that, but you potentially can keep all of the profits. The cons are that, like any business, it is expensive, it is time consuming, and it is stressful. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that that is true. Also, the really sad thing is you're all data people, you should look at the data. 90% of businesses fail. About 22% fail within the first year, about 30% cumulative by the second year, and about 50% by the fifth year. It's very hard to run a profitable business. I mean, think for instance, maybe you saw the recent data about day traders. How about only, I can't remember if it's either 1 or 3% of day traders actually make a profit, and the profit means not going into debt. And then it's only a fraction. I mean, it's at most 1% who actually make enough money to live off of it. For most of them, they're actually losing money or they drop out of it completely. So there is a risk. There is a risk. Now, I have done all three of these. I've done the YouTube videos. I have worked for a major provider, and I actually still do technically own my own business. On the other hand, I personally decided about a year and a half ago, 2 years now, to put my business on the back burner to not produce any new content for it, because I was spending about $15,000 a year on my business and it was bringing in zero income. And that was true for 4 or 5 years. And I decided I'd had enough of that. The website is still there. The videos and the resources are still there. But it was at that point I decided, well, I'm just going to double down on the work that I do, both at my university and the work that I do for LinkedIn. That seems to be a lot, they're much, much better at marketing than I am. And the one thing I've learned is that effective marketing makes or breaks a business. And I'm not good at marketing, and I'm much rather have somebody else who's very, very good at it working on it. So that was my decision. But this is all prelude, talking about these platforms, talking about YouTube or major providers or your own business. That's just talking about where you can put this stuff. I want to tell you a little bit more about how to actually make the videos, which is separate from deciding where you're going to put them. So, oh, I'm sorry, back up. I want to say a few tips about your own business. If you decide your own business, you don't start day one with a paywall. You got to have an audience first. You build the connections first. And after you've got, say, for instance, 1,000 followers, then you can start thinking about a paywall. And then, as I said, assume that you'll lose at least 90% of your audience when you start charging. So you need to build a really good audience and have that set up first. Okay, how to choose a topic. There are a few sources, and I've used all of these. Number one is Google Trends. Google Trends will show you how common things are as search terms relative to each other and over time. I'll show you a short example of that. Another one is going to YouTube and just typing in a term and seeing how many hits there are for that. And if something's got relatively few hits, then that may be an open market, something that you can put things. Another one is to go to each of the providers and look at their list, their table of contents, and see what they have and what they don't have, and if that stuff is up to date. And then another one is question and answer sites, things like Quora or Stack Overflow or Cross-Validated, where you can see what are the things that people are asking for help with often, and each of these sites will tell you what the most common topics are, and do you think that you can provide something useful on that? So here's an example of Google Trends. It's a free service, and you type in one or more terms. I think it can go up to 5 comparison. And so here I just typed in neural network and scikit-learn, because both of those are going to be data science terms. And what you can see from this is on the left is that, the average amount that there's a little bit more scikit searches over the last 12 months in the US than there are for neural network. Okay, fine. But you see it crosses over a little bit. Interestingly, they're dropping a little bit over time. Or rather, scikit-learn peaked back in, well, a year ago, and it's dropped a little bit since then. But here's a really interesting thing. Throw in something else that's data related, but is more general. And in this one, put in spreadsheet. And what you'll see is that the searches for spreadsheets dramatically outnumber the searches for specific data science topics. And in fact, that gets at an interesting point, and that is, do you want to have a general audience or do you want to have a niche audience? And it turns out that doing something like scikit-learn is kind of a niche audience. My most successful courses have been my most general ones. In fact, of really the most general are the ones that have no coding at all. They're just concept courses. I have a course for LinkedIn that's their introduction, this is what data science is course. I don't do any code in it. I just kind of say, this is what it means, this is how it's used, this is what you can get from it. And the data mining course is a little different because I do introduce code into that one. We actually have a fair amount of code that time. But I have other ones that say, I have short courses on data science and healthcare, data science and finance, data science and education, where I just explain very briefly what can be done within the field and what some of the challenges are. Those have been among my most successful courses. And of the, what I call the tools courses, the most basic ones have been the most successful. My most successful tools course right now, actually a really funny one, is on my YouTube channel. My most popular video at the moment is copying and pasting data in Google Sheets, which I wouldn't even think that you need a video for. But I made a video and it's getting thousands of hits a month. And I don't really know what that's about. I think probably some teachers have put a link on their courses on it. But the most basic ones are the most common. Again, the idea there is there's going to be more competition, but it's going to be a much, much, much larger pie, a much larger audience. And it does behoove you to figure out, do you want a small slice of a large pie or a larger slice of a small pie? In fact, I'm sorry, since I brought up that metaphor, let me just mention one thing. The different major providers like Pluralsight and LinkedIn Learning, they pay royalties, and the royalty rates they give are different. I believe the percentage that you get for royalties from Pluralsight is much higher than the percentage I get from LinkedIn, but LinkedIn Learning has such a massive audience that it justifies it, that having a smaller cut of a much, much larger pie has worked out well with LinkedIn. Let me actually tell you about LinkedIn. LIL stands for LinkedIn Learning. They publish their a list of their most popular courses each year. And this is, I'm going to show you the first 10 from their top 20 for last year. Number 1, time management, working from home. By the way, you can tell this is the pandemic list, but working from home, strategic thinking, remote work foundations, learning Python, developing your emotional intelligence. So those are the top 5. The next set are Excel 2016 Essential Training, Excel Essential Training. By the way, in the top 20, there's a third Excel course, and they're all by the same guy. So he's doing really, really well. 8, communicating with confidence. 9, a certification preparation for project management professional, closely followed by number 10, project management foundations. And so you see there are some data ones in there, but actually the only one that's really, learning Python, I assume that most of the people who take that are not learning Python in order to do data science. They're doing it in order to be programmers and something else, but it is data relevant. The big data ones are the 2 Excel courses. Again, think very, very general audience. By the way, if there's comments, I don't see them. Somebody should yell them out to me. I'm just looking at my screen.
I haven't seen any questions yet, Bart.
Okay. All right, thank you. But these give you an idea of what's most in demand with each of these things. So between Google Trends and looking at the most popular list of each one, you can get a great idea of what some of the possibilities are. But the other things you can do, I'll just mention, is going to the providers lists and seeing what's missing. I can tell you right now, Pluralsight does not have a lot of stuff on R. They have some, they have not a lot. And LinkedIn Learning, relatively speaking, does not have as much stuff on Python as they would like. So there are some things that are not there. There's almost nothing in terms of hands-on code in financial technology at LinkedIn Learning. I'm working on a course to deal with some of that. But see what's not there. Now, here's another thing. I want to give you an idea. It's okay to get help, both in terms of choosing topic, but even making the course. You don't have to be a total expert on a topic to make a course on it. What you really have to do is be able to explain things. And I'll let you know, when I do code heavy courses, I always get help. I hire people to help me with some of the stuff. I say, I know I can figure this out, but I'd rather have the code ready in 2 days instead of in 2 weeks. And it's okay to get help. You can learn, but don't copy from sites like Stack Overflow, Quora, wherever. Um, Plagiarizing will get you in very big trouble. So you want to find several different examples of what you're looking for, adapt from each of them, and then adapt them to your own particular data set if you can. You can hire contractors. I use the service Upwork when I need to get professional help. On the other hand, it's very important to be clear that A, they can't go to Stack Overflow or Quora and copy and paste code, because then you still get nailed for plagiarism. Second, they do need to be clear, and most contractors understand this, that you own the copyright to this code and you'll be using it for whatever you do. And it needs to be original code and it needs to be clear code. And again, your job is to explain it. Your job is to decide what needs to be explained, to get the code either by writing it yourself or by getting somebody to help with that, and then explaining the code in a useful way. I think that my major strength in the video world has been the fact that for over 20 years, I have taught statistics to scared undergraduates, people who are terrified of being there. And I have learned how to break things down into the simplest possible methods and do it in the most reassuring way possible. Also, when I give examples, even on LinkedIn, because my background is in psychology, I use a lot of examples from psychology and the social sciences. I use human examples as opposed to drill bits, and that seems to work well for a lot of people. And so that's bringing in some of your own background and your own experience to give you your own voice when making these videos. Now, in terms of the nuts and bolts of making a video, this is a very short little piece right here. I just want to say, first off, you got to create a presentation. If you're doing a concept course, when I'm doing a code course, I often just go straight to my computer screen where I have R or Python or Jamovi or Excel open, and I just run it straight from there. Keep it simple. You may have noticed I keep the presentation pretty simple. I use bullet points, even though a lot of people don't like those, but they're very clear. Also, anything you do should be viewable on a 4-inch screen. And that's why I use the size fonts that I do and why I keep things to one line. I want people to be able to see it from their phone. Images are nice. Images, animations, pictures are nice, but absolutely, totally, positively respect copyright. If you use a picture that you do not have permission to use, you can get fried. And especially for a major provider, they just won't allow it. There are some places where you can get free or inexpensive pictures that are usable. There's Unsplash, which I assume many of you are familiar with. There's Pixabay. I have a subscription. I want to say it's like 50 or $100 a year to a service called Death to the Stock Photo. I really love them. They do not have any pictures of computer screens. But it turns out your pictures don't have to be like 100% relevant to what you're talking about. Also, you can make your own. I mean, seriously, you can get out your phone and you can take a picture of something and have that be your illustration. It works well, and it's actually kind of nice. I also, when I have done a lot of projects, I have made my own graphics in R or Python. And then in terms of recording, for initial videos, built-in screen capture, and both Windows and Macs have that. Built-in screen capture and the built-in microphone are sufficient. Try to be in a relatively quiet room. I have to admit, I'm directly underneath the clothes washer, which is running right now, and I've got a heating fan on right now. That would never do for my professional work. I actually have a walk-in closet, I'm pointing to it, where I work that has sound absorbing stuff all around it, and I use professional equipment in that space, and I got it checked out by LinkedIn Learning. But if you could just be in a quiet space, you're probably going to be fine. You can even use your phone. I have done videos where I'm just talking to my phone. You can hold it up and talk to it. You don't need high production. My initial videos, I just trimmed the front and the back and absolutely nothing else. And then make sure the volume is sufficient, simple stuff.
One thing I'll
Yeah.
add to that right now, Bart, is how much do you see or use just using Zoom to do these sort of things too? Because again, at
Oh,
my office and stuff, we've been basically having discussions, chat, nerd lunches, and everything else, and we just record them on Zoom, and they're great quality to do it just that
you know
way.
what? That actually sounds fabulous. That hadn't occurred to me, but that would be perfect.
Yeah.
And Zoom has really good audio isolation for when
Mhm.
you're talking. So it's actually probably a good way to go.
Yeah, if you have your own account or something else, or even if you don't, I mean, the accounts really are not expensive per month if you did it for 1 or 2 months or something like that. You
Right.
can record your own session just coming in and hitting record. I mean, I've done it before for my own stuff. All you have to do is just record yourself doing the presentation. It works well.
Thanks, Pat.
Yep.
Okay, and then a little bit about connecting with an audience. Um, Building an audience is the hard part. I wish I could say that, learning how to do a neural network is the hard part. It's not. It's getting somebody to watch it is the hard part. And you think about that in any business, building up a clientele base is the hard part. When somebody sells a law practice or they sell a dental practice, what they're really selling is the clients, um, and a pre-built audience. And that is the hard part. Um, Now you can do things with your videos. You can give them useful titles so people actually know what you're talking about. You can give them a useful description, tags. You can put in a thumbnail so that when people see it on YouTube, they can tell what it is and whether they want to click on it. You can market to Facebook groups or to LinkedIn groups. And what that means is you are able to find people if you have something that is relatively specific. You can then go to those groups, or you can go to Q&A sites and see people asking questions about stuff that you've answered in a video, and you can connect up that way. But really the easiest is to connect to an existing audience. And that's why I work with LinkedIn. They have their own audience. And a really funny thing is I have collaborated with some others to connect with their audiences in surprising ways. Let me show you this one thing because this connects to it. And it's the paradox of giving it away. That is giving your stuff away for free. And I have an interesting little analogy for this. And there are two musicians I know of who have built careers or have extended their careers by giving away their music for free. Several years ago, Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails started making all of his not just the music, but the stem tracks available for free online. I mean, he still sells the music, and still streams the music, but you can get it totally online for free. And then Chance the Rapper built his career by being an independent musician and giving his stuff away for free. What's interesting in this case is it lets you know that both of them, they make money, they just don't make money from the thing that you expect them to make it for. They make money through merchandise and through live performances and through commercial gigs. Trent Reznor does a lot of movie music now. The so the thing that you thought was central, which was the music recording itself, actually has become in the hook that allows people to make a career through other means, and it does work that way. I mean, I remember reading many years ago, Harley Davidson makes more money selling T-shirts than they make selling motorcycles, and so just something to think about. Um, I have taken the videos that I made for Data Lab, and then I spent a fair amount of time, and I got those professionally produced. I paid somebody to do that. But I got contacted by an organization, Free Code Camp, and I gave them all of my videos. And they rolled them all up and they put them on their site. And what's funny about that is when they were on my YouTube channel and they were on Data Lab, I maybe got a few thousand hits. I have two courses that are now with Free Code Camp. One is an introduction to data science. Another one is an introduction to R. Um, and they have, I think, 1.2 and 1.4 million views each now, because I share them with Free Code Camp. And they're very nice about it. They give me credit. I get to introduce myself and they pin that in a comment at the top. And I can tell when it's working because the most views I got on my stuff and the most interactions I've had with people were when I shared it for free. I've shared it with Free Code Camp, shared it with another organization called MyCS, with a coding boot camp in Ghana called the Blossom Academy. These have been fabulous partnerships, but I benefit from them indirectly. Also, LinkedIn Learning, who pays me money, they also occasionally do promotions. And when the pandemic hit, LinkedIn Learning and their owner, Microsoft, wanted to do some major promotions to help people get digital skills so they could hopefully still get paid during the pandemic. And they chose a number of courses. They chose about 20 courses that they felt would be helpful for people, and 2 of them were my courses. And they asked if they could please share them for free. And I'm happy to do that. And what's funny about that is those 2 courses that I shared for free then also became my highest royalty paying courses, because people would watch them who already, like through their job or through their university, had a license with LinkedIn, and so it drove up the royalties as well. Consequently, they came back and said, we want to share a whole bunch more of your videos, especially all the translations. And I said, you go for that. And it's been amazing. Again, it lets me get by sharing, by being willing to share things for free with LinkedIn. I also got my most royalties ever. It's a little paradox. Anyhow, I think that that's my last slide. And we've got a few minutes, and my watch thinks I'm working out somehow. I would be happy to answer questions. You can also email me, bart@datalab.cc. Got a LinkedIn page, and I've got 2 websites. Like I have my personal website, bartonpolson.com, and my professional one, datalab.cc. But at this point, I'm going to turn off the sharing, and I'd love to answer questions.
I'll leave the recording going for a few minutes if we do get some questions. One thing I'll add there right at the end there, Bart, that was excellent that you talked about the free sharing of some of that content too, to see it's not always bad to give something away for free if there's some other way to make the revenue around it. In other words, you got the royalties because of it. A lot of people think that if they put out a GitLab repository or a video or something else, they're losing their content. They're losing their money that they can make off of it. But it all depends on what you're trying to do, you know, and
Well,
where you can get that money.
And I'll tell you, interestingly, I specified at the beginning, I was only going to talk about teaching online with videos. I have also written 2 books, one of which came about because of the videos that I made. And I have had several consulting gigs, including with the Visa Corporation and the Department of State, that came about because of the videos that I have. Those pay really well.
Yeah.
But that's because of stuff that they saw already. But sharing the stuff is probably the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, I will definitely jump on that one. If you are a consultant or if you want to do side jobs or consulting or anything else, presenting and showing your content and showing that you're an expert, there is no better way to do it. I've gotten most of my contracts from doing presentations and user groups and everything else where people have seen me talk about something and said, hey, we've got this problem. We'd love for you to come talk to us about it and that sort of thing. So getting out there is definitely a big thing. If you can pull up the chat now, it looks like you got one in there from Matthew right now.
Yeah, Matthew. The recording equipment I have right now, well, aside from the software, and I have recorded videos using Mac's built-in just QuickTime. I've recorded them with QuickTime. I also have ScreenFlow and ScreenFlick and Camtasia. I think there's another one in there. I do most of it right now with ScreenFlick simply because that's what LinkedIn wants me to use. That's how they want me to submit it. And in terms of the hardware, I do have an audio interface, and I have a very, very fancy high-end headset microphone that I had to buy on my own. Those were about $1,000 when I bought them 8 years ago. But at the same time, I've been able to record perfectly good audio using my AirPods and using, even my computer screen. I now have a computer with no fan.
Mhm.
And so that's been useful. So that part is not the hard part. If you're going to do big production with like titles that fly in and this and that and the other, you're going to need something like Camtasia or ScreenFlow. I think they're about $100 to buy, maybe. And I guarantee you do not need to spend $1,000 on the audio part. You can get stuff that's much, much cheaper. It's just that LinkedIn Learning said you need this exact audio interface and you need this exact headphone. I wish they would have paid for them. I did them,
Mhm.
but it's worked out. And oh, cool. Mariah points out EpoCam is an app that allows you to use your phone's camera. That's cool.
Yeah.
And Paul mentions, combining your interest experience for niche marketing. It really is relevant. I have had a plan for a long time, which I don't think I'm going to follow through. But back up. It's what I do all day long. I teach statistics to behavioral science students at UVU. And I teach it in a way that is directly oriented towards people who are planning on, for instance, being therapists. And even when I say, okay, we need to get back out of like the researchy world, and I want to say, I want to teach you how to do spreadsheets to run your therapy as a small business. But that's my audience. And at the university, that's why so many different departments have their own statistics courses, is because they are marketing to that particular audience. But I also have done a lot of work with people in the performing arts. My wife's a choreographer, and my work, strangely enough, many years ago when I was doing work on data visualization, that actually led to me doing work on data visualization live in dance performances. And I got a commission from me and my wife to do a piece with Repertory Dance Theater in Salt Lake. And then I got a grant at my school. I spent 2 years doing live video processing for performances. Anyhow, but you can take that niche. If you got two interests, you can give a spin to data on any interest, and suddenly you'll have a group of people who will be much more interested in what you're posting. You can do a thing on spreadsheets, but if you say like, I know how to do spreadsheets and quilting patterns, you've got a lock on a group. So that's what I would recommend. My mom does quilting patterns.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right. I'm guessing that's all the questions for right now. Anyways, I'll go ahead and stop the recording though, just so that we have that part.